The flames rose higher, licking at the air with a cruel hunger, yet the woman standing bound in the center of the tribunal did not flinch. Her wrists were tied before her, her arms cinched tightly against her body by coarse rope that dug into the dark fabric of her suit. An embroidered patch of her flag, a small, rectangular reminder of her origin, stood out sharply against the alien light of the chamber. She stared forward, unblinking, her jaw set in a defiance that unsettled even the silent crowd of extraterrestrial onlookers seated on either side. The room was vast, its architecture curved and gleaming with metals unfamiliar to any human eye, every surface bathed in the cold glow of blue light. At its heart, she was a lone figure, a human among creatures that had ruled the stars for generations. They sat robed in black and gold, their features sharp and unnatural, elongated skulls, eyes like polished stone, mouths that spoke without lips. Their posture was calm, but a subtle stiffness betrayed the tension coursing through the assembly. She could feel them watching her, dissecting her, waiting for a break in her composure. They wanted fear, perhaps even tears, but all she gave them was silence. Beside her, still on his knees, her partner remained bound as well, his face partially obscured by shadows, but his breathing steady. They had not broken him either. The two of them stood as statues carved from an indomitable stone, and the Empire, for all its pomp and rituals, was beginning to sense its mistake. An alien voice resonated through the chamber, metallic yet weighted with ceremony. It declared the charges in a language that had been crudely translated into the common tongue for their benefit. Trespass, murder, insurrection, crimes against the order of the galaxy. The words echoed like a litany, but the woman recognized them for what they were, fear disguised as justice. Every crime they had committed, every strike they had delivered, had been in the name of survival. The Empire had called them predators, but the Empire had forced them into the hunt. She shifted her gaze, catching her partner's eyes for a fraction of a second. He was calm, too calm, and she knew that behind that stillness was the sharp mind that had guided them through every ambush, every pursuit. His silence was not submission. It was calculation. He was studying exits, the placement of guards, the weaknesses in the aliens' order of ritual. Even bound, even at the edge of execution, he was hunting. The presiding judge, or what passed for one among these beings, leaned forward. Its elongated fingers tapped on the desk with deliberate precision as though each sound was a nail in the coffin of humanity. "You are relics," it intoned. "Predators clinging to an age of brutality. We will extinguish your flame as we have extinguished others before you." Its words carried the cold certainty of an empire unchallenged for centuries, but its eyes betrayed curiosity, as though it did not quite believe its own prophecy. The fire at their feet was not just symbolic. The heat was real, the tongues of flame rising higher with every passing second. The smell of burning fuel stung the air. The ritual was an ancient one, designed not only to kill but to humiliate, to display to all species the futility of defiance. Yet as the heat pressed against their skin, the woman straightened her back. Pain was familiar. Endurance had been the first lesson they had ever learned as hunters of their own hostile world. This was nothing. A murmur passed through the assembly. Some of the aliens whispered to one another, their voices low, their tones uneasy. The humans were supposed to struggle by now, to scream, to beg for mercy. Instead, they stood like predators caught in the moment before the strike, eyes sharp, breath steady. The ritual fire, meant to consume, seemed instead to reveal. She let her gaze sweep the chamber, memorizing every detail. The symmetry of the architecture suggested escape routes. The guards at the far doors were armed with staff-like weapons, the flickering light of the flames distorted shadows enough to conceal sudden movement. Every detail mattered, because survival demanded it. She knew her partner was observing the same, each of them processing the scene from different angles, their thoughts converging toward a single conclusion. The judge raised a hand and the flames surged higher, brightening the chamber in a cruel glow. "Behold the fate of your kind. it declared, its voice ringing like iron across stone. The galaxy will remember this as the day the last predators were broken. The woman finally spoke, her voice steady, low but carrying through the silence that followed. "You don't understand." The words hung in the air, drawing every eye, even her partner's, toward her. She had not spoken since their capture, had refused every interrogation, every taunt. Now, as the fire threatened to consume them, she chose her moment. "We are not the last. We are only the first you've caught." The reaction was immediate. Unease rippled through the alien ranks. Whispers rose into sharp clicks and guttural murmurs. The presiding judge's stone-like face twitched, betraying the first crack in composure. Fear had crept in. Her partner's lips curved almost imperceptibly, the ghost of a smile not of comfort, but of promise. His silence remained unbroken, but his eyes gleamed with the certainty of what was to come. Bound they might be, surrounded by enemies they might stand, yet they were hunters. And hunters did not die in cages. They waited, they endured, and then they struck. The fire roared louder, sparks leaping upward as if eager to consume. The tribunal rose from their seats, the ritual approaching its climax. Yet amid the inferno, the humans stood, unflinching, every heartbeat sharpening the tension to a knife's edge. The aliens wanted a spectacle, and they would have one, but not the one they expected. The rope creaked faintly under pressure, her partner's wrists flexing in subtle motion. She tilted her head ever so slightly, a silent signal between them, invisible to alien eyes. The moment was near. The chamber seemed to hold its breath. The Empire thought it was delivering justice. The humans knew it was delivering an opportunity. The first flicker of violence was only a heartbeat away. And when it came, the galaxy would remember not their execution, but their escape. The flames rose higher, and the predators waited. The rope gave way with a sudden snap, a sound swallowed by the crackling of the fire and the murmurs of alarm from the tribunal. The man's wrists twisted free, the coarse fibers falling in ragged coils to the floor. He moved with explosive precision, the strike of a predator that had waited until the exact moment of weakness revealed itself. In one fluid motion, he wrenched a weapon from the nearest guard, the alien staff humming with contained energy, and drove its butt into the creature's chest. The sound of cracking bone echoed through the chamber. Panic surged. The carefully ordered ritual collapsed into chaos as the human couple struck like lightning. The woman's bonds were severed by her partner's swift hand, and she moved instantly, no hesitation, no wasted breath. She seized a shard of burning wood from the ceremonial pyre and hurled it into the face of another guard. The alien shrieked, stumbling backward, and the chamber erupted into a storm of motion. They were no longer captives. They were predators in the open. The tribunal recoiled in shock, the robed judges scrambling to retreat as their guards faltered. The woman's voice, low and sharp, cut through the din. "Move." Her partner needed no further instruction. Their movements were not the frantic flails of desperate prisoners, but the coordinated dance of hunters who had rehearsed every possibility in silence. The staff hissed with energy as the man drove it in wide arcs, each strike measured for efficiency. A guard's head snapped back under the blow, another fell gasping with a shattered ribcage. The woman moved with quieter precision, striking low, cutting through knees and throats with swift, economical violence. Where he was force, she was focus. Where he broke lines, she slipped through them. Together they carved a path. The spectators, once eager to witness execution, now stampeded toward the exits. Screams reverberated, the scraping of alien feet a chaotic backdrop to the humans' deliberate brutality. Yet amid the chaos, the couple's eyes remained locked not on the fleeing masses but on the towering doors at the far end of the chamber. That was the way out, and that was where the real hunt would begin. The man flung the staff, its end piercing clean through the chest of a guard who tried to bar their passage. The weapon hummed once, then fell silent, still lodged in its victim. He did not bother to retrieve it. His fists were enough, his body trained for this very work. The woman darted ahead, her hair whipping in the heat, her gaze narrowed on the path beyond the tribunal chamber. They had survived the fire. Now they would turn it outward. Outside the chamber, the station came alive with alarms. Red lights pulsed along the ceiling, and the shrill wail of klaxons echoed through the corridors. A voice, mechanical and urgent, barked orders in an alien tongue, summoning reinforcements to contain the breach. The Empire, proud and certain of its dominance, was beginning to panic. The woman pressed herself against the wall, listening as a squad of armored guards thundered past an intersecting corridor. She waited until the last of them passed before motioning her partner forward. "They'll funnel us to containment. We can't let them." Her voice was clipped, efficient, every word a calculation. He nodded once. "Then we hunt first." The phrase was a covenant between them, one that had been spoken before on countless worlds. They had been hunted before, driven through jungles, deserts, cities of steel, yet each time they had turned the tables. They knew the rhythm of pursuit and reversal, and now the Empire would learn it too. The first squad never saw them coming. The man surged from the shadows, his shoulder colliding with the lead soldier's chest, driving him into the wall with a crunch. Before the others could turn, the woman was among them, her movements a blur. She wrenched a blade free from one alien's belt and used it with lethal economy, slashing tendons, puncturing throat. Their bodies fell with muffled gasps, the hall slick with the evidence of her precision. The last soldier raised his weapon in trembling hands, the barrel glowing with lethal intent. The woman did not falter. She stepped into the line of fire, her hand snapping upward to twist the weapon aside, and her partner's fist crashed into the alien's skull, silencing him instantly. Silence fell again, broken only by the blare of alarms. The woman exhaled slowly, steadying her breath, her eyes sweeping the corridor. "They'll realize soon. They'll send more." "They already have," he replied, stooping to strip weapons from the fallen. He tossed her one of the alien rifles, its sleek frame alien in design, yet oddly familiar in its intent. She caught it, checked its weight, and without hesitation slung it over her shoulder. Their adaptability had always been their weapon. Whatever the enemy built, humans would find a way to turn it against them. As they moved deeper into the station, resistance grew fiercer. The Empire's soldiers, once so certain of their superiority, now fought with a tension born of unease. They fired in bursts that missed their mark, flinched at shadows, faltered when their targets closed the distance. Every death the humans delivered fed the myth already beginning to spread. These captives were not victims, they were predators unleashed. Through it all, the couple moved with a wordless rhythm. The man broke through defensive lines with sheer force, using stolen weapons and his own body as instruments of destruction. The woman exploited every gap, slipping into blind spots, striking unseen, sowing panic with the precision of her kills. Their synergy was more than practiced. It was instinctual, honed through battles survived together. Yet they were not reckless. They conserved energy, chose their battles, and left survivors deliberately. Panic was as much a weapon as blood, and fear spread faster than any blade. Those who lived would carry tales of the humans' ruthlessness, magnifying their legend even as the Empire tried to contain it. In a deserted maintenance bay, the woman paused to study a console, her fingers brushing over its unfamiliar surface. "This place is a node," she murmured. "They'll be watching it. They'll expect us to move through." Her partner crouched beside her, his eyes scanning the exits. "Then we go where they won't. The ducks, the shadows. They've built this place for order. That's where we'll bleed them, turn their structure into a trap." She nodded, the faintest ghost of satisfaction passing over her face. The Empire thought in straight lines, but hunters thrived in the crooked paths. They would use the station's rigidity against it. Hours, or what felt like hours, bled into the hunt. The alarms never ceased, the station's voice a constant reminder of the pursuit. Yet with each passing moment, the balance of power shifted. The humans had entered as captives, now they stalked the corridors as predators. Entire squads fell silent. Commanders barked desperate orders, only to hear static where acknowledgments should have been. The woman leaned against the cool metal of a service hatch, her breathing steady though her body carried the sheen of exertion. She glanced at her partner, who stood guard at the corridor's mouth. "They won't forgive this," she said quietly. "We've humiliated them. They'll hunt us across the stars." "They already would have," he replied. His eyes were hard, but his voice held certainty. "Now they'll just know why they should be afraid." Her lips curved into a rare, sharp smile. "Good." The station was bleeding. Its corridors, once polished and pristine, now bore the stains of charred metal, shattered glass, and the bodies of its own guardians. Smoke hung heavy in the air, mingling with the acrid scent of alien blood. The alarms had shifted in tone, no longer the shrill order of containment but the fractured stutter of a system overwhelmed. What had begun as an execution had become a massacre, and the Empire's fortress was unraveling from within. The man moved first, his shoulders squared, weapon raised, every step deliberate and heavy with intent. He did not glance at the carnage left in their wake. He had no need to. His partner walked just behind, quieter, her gaze sweeping every shadow, her movements economical, precise. Where his presence drew attention, hers slipped between it, the dual halves of a single, lethal rhythm. They did not speak unless necessary, but the silence between them carried the weight of 1,000 hunts. They pressed deeper into the stronghold, drawn toward its heart where the High Council cowered. The Empire's leaders had retreated behind layers of soldiers and steel, believing walls and bodies could insulate them from consequence. But walls could be breached, soldiers could be broken, and the humans did not stop until the hunt was finished. Resistance thickened as they approached. Entire units converged on the corridors, pouring fire down the narrow halls. Bolts of searing light carved through the air, cutting gashes into the walls, scorching the floor. Yet the humans advanced. The man absorbed the barrage like a force of nature, his stolen rifle roaring with thunderous response, each shot precise, deliberate, lethal. The woman slid between cover, her movements flowing like water, her blade flashing whenever distance closed. They left no room for hesitation, no moment of reprieve. Every second of defiance was paid for in blood. The Empire had once believed humans fragile, unremarkable creatures clawing their way into the stars. But here, in the bowels of its own citadel, the truth revealed itself with every kill. Humans endured where others broke. They adapted where others faltered. They hunted with a ferocity born not of training but of evolution, a legacy carved in the marrow of their species. And when pressed to the edge, they did not cower. They struck back. At last, the barricades gave way, the last line of soldiers crumbling under the relentless assault. The doors to the council chamber loomed ahead, towering and ornate, their silvered surface marked with the sigils of authority. Beyond them lay the architects of empire, the ones who had ordered the fire, the ones who had believed ritual could tame predators. The man paused only long enough to reload, the click of the weapon a promise of what would follow. The woman's hand brushed the door, testing its resistance. Then, together, they forced it open. The chamber within was cavernous, lit by the cold glow of distant stars framed through an enormous window. The council sat in a semicircle of thrones, their figures draped in ceremonial robes, their faces carved from the same alien stone as the rest of their kind. They had not fled. They had waited, convinced still of their authority, clinging to the belief that words and power could halt what violence had already undone. "You have desecrated this place," one of them intoned, its voice trembling despite its attempt at grandeur. "You have slaughtered without honor. You will be remembered as beasts." The man stepped forward, weapon raised, his voice calm, unshaken. "Beasts don't remember. Predators do." His words carried no flourish, only truth. The woman's gaze swept the council, reading them as she would any prey. Fear seeped from them despite their rigid postures. Some trembled visibly, others gripped their thrones with hands that betrayed their desperation. Only one, the presiding judge from the tribunal, held their stare with a brittle defiance. "You are dangerous," it said. "Not because of strength. Because of what you inspire. You cannot be allowed to live." The woman tilted her head, a faint, cold smile curving her lips. "And yet, here we are." The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the hum of the station's failing systems. The council had no armies left to call, no guards to stand between themselves and the hunters they had tried to burn alive. The humans had taken their ritual and inverted it, turning judgment into reckoning. The man's rifle lowered slightly, not in mercy but in declaration. "You thought fire would end us. Fire only sharpens steel." The woman moved then, her blade flashing in the chamber's cold light. The first counselor fell with scarcely a sound, its body collapsing against its throne. Panic erupted among the rest, their cries a discordant hymn to fear. Some begged, others cursed, but none escaped. The humans struck without hesitation, without pause, their movements honed and final. Each kill was a sentence carried out, each death a seal upon the Empire's arrogance. When the chamber fell silent again, only the two of them remained standing amid the ruin of power. The woman wiped the blade clean against her sleeve, her expression unreadable. The man turned toward the great window, his eyes fixed on the stars beyond. "They'll come for us," she said softly. "They already are," he replied. His voice carried neither dread nor triumph, only certainty. "But now they know what hunts them." Outside, the vastness of the galaxy stretched endless and indifferent, yet something had shifted. The Empire had been wounded, its myth of invulnerability shattered by two captives who had refused to die. Already, the story would spread, through soldiers who fled, through whispers carried across borders, through transmissions that could not be contained. The tale of fire resisted, of predators unbroken, would ignite more than fear. It would spark rebellion. The woman stepped to his side, her gaze following his into the void. "We'll never be free of them." "No," he agreed. Then he turned, meeting her eyes with the same unflinching certainty that had carried them through every trial. "But they'll never be free of us either." The chamber behind them was silent but for the hum of dying systems, a mausoleum for the arrogance of rulers. Ahead lay the stars, vast and waiting. Their hunt was not over, it had only begun. The galaxy had thought to burn them alive. Instead, it had unleashed them,